President Trump says he will put an additional 50% tax on goods coming in from China if the country does not withdraw its 34% tariffs on American goods. That came up at the White House press briefing earlier this afternoon. For more, I spoke with the CBC's Richard Madden in Washington.
The White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, confirming that the president's total of 104% tariffs on China will kick in at midnight, following Trump's earlier threats for Beijing to reduce them. They haven't done that. They've missed the deadline. So the White House says they are going to put in those additional tariffs at midnight, essentially igniting the next phase of this global trade war between the world's two largest economies. I'm just reading this right here because China's Commerce Ministry issued its own statement saying it will absolutely retaliate, calling Trump's actions a unilateral bullying practice, and then saying the U.S. threat to escalate tariffs on China is a mistake on top of a mistake. China, it says, will fight to the end. Now, obviously, it doesn't appear China is ready to blink, and neither is the White House, because Caroline Leavitt says the president is not extending or delaying tariffs, saying the U.S. has the economic leverage and power that other countries simply do not have. Take a listen.
Moving forward, the president will talk to any country that picks up the phone to call, and I can tell you the phones have been ringing off the hook, wanting to talk to this administration, this president, and his trade team to try to strike a deal. And it's because the world knows that they need the United States of America. They need our markets. They need our consumer. The president has a lot of leverage on his side because he has the best economy and the best country in the world that he leads, and he knows that. And it's about dang time we finally have a president who uses that economic leverage to benefit American workers, and that's what the president is trying to do.
So you heard from White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, and her comments follow a pretty intense Senate hearing on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue on Capitol Hill, where Trump's new trade representative by a name Jamieson Greer, you're likely going to hear a lot more of him. He defended the president's aggressive tariff agenda before lawmakers. Take a listen to this exchange.
I still cannot fathom why we are treating Canada and Mexico, our largest trading partners, basically the same way we're treating Beijing. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Senator, the country decisively voted for this president and his trade policy. He knows how to use tariffs appropriately to negotiate deals where necessary and to drive investment and manufacturing back to the U.S. And that's what we're doing. He was successful in his first term in using it. Real wages went up, and that's what we're doing now. And we're working around the clock to make sure we can do that.
Okay, he also said the White House is already speaking with dozens of countries, 50 to 70 countries on trade issues and trade barriers that impede U.S. exports. But he warned these issues won't be solved overnight. And I think, Andrew, the market's uncertainty is reflecting that.
Are we seeing pushback from Republicans?
We are. In fact, we're seeing more cracks growing from within as more lawmakers push back against Trump's tariff policy. 7 Senate Republicans are now backing a bill from an Iowa Republican, Chuck Grassley, that would force the president to give Congress 2 days notice of any new tariffs, and those would have to be approved by Congress first before they get implemented. And this follows other moves that we saw on Capitol Hill last week. 4 Republicans joined Democrats to block tariffs from Canada. That's more of a symbolic vote than one that will actually get enforced. But the biggest rift today may be between Trump's billionaire advisor and Tesla CEO Elon Musk, who's a strong critic of tariffs, and White House trade advisor Peter Navarro, who is a key architect of them. Those two were hurling very public insults at each other. But unlike the president and his advisors, Republican lawmakers have to face their worried constituents and small business owners worried of the economic damage, rising costs, and market uncertainty caused by Trump's tariff and escalating trade war. In fact, one of the more vocal Republicans is Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, who said this morning he basically called Trump a liar for conflating Canada's dairy tariffs with dairy quotas. As we know, these are two very different things that the president is using to justify tariffs and really whip up resentment among his base against the Canadians. Listen to Rand Paul.
You have to start from talking about the truth. One of the things they say with Canada is, oh, there's a 270% tariff on dairy products going from the U.S. into Canada. Well, you know what the real tariff is? 0. That's a big difference between what the truth is. So there's a certain amount of goods, dairy goods, that go to Canada every year, and they go at 0%. If we exceed a certain amount, there's this ridiculous 270% tariff, but we've never encountered it. And the USMC renegotiated it and raised the level that's under zero. Trump should be congratulated for USMC raising the amount of dairy that goes in at zero. But we have to have an honest debate. We can't go around saying that there's a 270% tariff when that's not really the truth.
Also wanted to add that Canadian-born Senator Republican Ted Cruz of Texas also warned of the downside risks to Trump's tariff, saying on his podcast just last week, if those tariffs stay in place for the long term, it could drive up inflation, damage job growth, and possibly throw the U.S. into recession, saying that would result in a, quote, bloodbath for Republicans in the 2026 midterm elections. So, Andrew, we're less than a week or so since Trump announced these tariffs, and we're still seeing the fallout, not just in the markets, but from within the Republican conference.